talking. I don't care about the holes in your pants.
Hey, this stuff is being recorded. It's all fair game for Gelman. Don't talk like that.
Sorry.
You know what the guy can do.
Are you scared to start?
You could start us off here, episode 58.
No. We are creatures of habit. Go ahead.
I mean, people would like for you to do the intro.
How do you know?
I know this.
Has somebody told you that?
Yes.
Okay.
Lots of people
Go ahead.
have texted me.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Let's see if people think it's text or texted.
I mean, yes, I text you. I did not texted you.
No, that's not the right.
Okay, go on.
Okay, yes, it is. I texted her.
Yeah, I texted
What
her.
do you guys think? Text her or texted?
Well, it's like sheep. That's my example. There is a sheep and there are sheep. So when I text you, I text you.
That's fun.
I did not texted you.
Start the program.
Here we go. Welcome to Emotion Chips, where we talk about the real reason. Everything happens for a reason. I'm your host, Charlie Carroll, along with my cock-a-hoop.
Okay. Oh my gosh. We need to start the list over. What did you call me on episode 1? It's time
Mallory
to cycle
Redmond.
through again.
Welcome to the program, Mal. Do you know what cock-a-hoop means?
No.
Exuberant. Happy.
Okay.
Very happy.
You're now looking upwards.
Nope. Welcome to the program, Mal.
I need you to be honest. You are looking upwards.
I am radically honest.
Are you looking upwards?
Maybe.
Okay. That does not sound like radical honesty, but
I said maybe.
that's not it's yes or no. It's a yes or no question.
I didn't know that those were my only two choices. Go on. Ask me again.
Are you looking upwards?
Yes.
Ugh, radical honesty hurts.
Sure does.
Okay, how are you?
Good. Episode 58. Here we are, ladies and gentlemen, having a lot of fun in the Emotion Ships studio.
Gosh. Yes, we are, people.
Sure are. I read this morning, the world's falling apart. I don't know if you knew that or not, but the world...
I mean, it's always it's a slow deterioration.
It is.
Deterioration.
They're CDC and the WHO and everybody's talking about...
I saw that about the vaccine.
Yes.
Yikes.
Johnson & Johnson. Shutting down the world again, advising Michigan to shut down.
Okay.
It's quite chaotic. Mm-hmm. I do have a friend whose arms are still like tingling and he's having issues with his arms after the vaccination.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not an anti-vaxxer. I'm just, I do know people that have had issues. What? I think people should be able to get the vaccine if they want to. I'm not going to. I've looked at the ingredients in this. I think it's 5 ingredients, but we won't stay there. Okay. I also saw where Domino's just started a fully automated delivery system.
Okay, subject change.
They have a robot that, well, it's kind of...
There was no transition there.
Well, it's kind of connected to the pandemic. They have gone to, and this is a very interesting thought, they have gone to a fully automated, this is in Houston, Texas, mm-hmm. where they're trying this pilot, mm-hmm. A fully automated delivery system where they have a robot car that stacks pizzas. They put their pizzas in it. It drives to the different locations, and they will text you, not texted you. Yeah, they will text you a code to open up the car and get your pizza out of their little hot oven minivan. Yeah.
It's a minivan.
It's a mini van. It's like one of those Nissan Leaf vehicles. Like,
yeah.
You know, you'll drive straight over top of it if you don't pay attention.
Right.
Yeah, it's really small, and they're trying it, but
why? Why?
Their goal is just as
don't we want to be employing people?
I think so. But
people don't want to be employed. They can't find employees.
Ooh, boy.
Oh, am I opening up a can of worms?
I'm really.
You can screw that one back on.
No, I'm really passionate about this, but it's interesting. You know, when we get into, we've got a lot to figure out as a country, because when you start talking about like a minimum wage having to be $15 an hour, which I, as a business owner, I want to pay people well, and that's the way it should be.
Sure.
But if you mandate that people have to pay people a certain amount an hour. There are a lot of businesses that cannot do that. And what they're going to do is they're going to get really creative and come up with robots that deliver pizzas because they can't afford to pay a delivery driver $15 an hour.
But don't you think Domino's Pizza can actually afford that? There's got to be some very rich people who work for Domino's.
I mean, it's a really good question, but there are certain business models that don't have a lot of profit baked into them, and here's why. Because the internet exists, like Pizza Hut can see what Domino's is doing, Papa John's can see what they're doing, and there's so much competition. Like, I know this from being in the hospitality industry, like there is a ceiling to what you can charge people for a product because you have so much competition. And so it's not, business is not what it used to be, where you never knew who was doing something 50 miles away, what they were charging.
Sure.
And so competition is so stiff. I mean, you're looking at, a 3 to 5% opportunity for profit in the restaurant industry. Delivering pizzas is a little different, but, it's like Tesla. A lot of people don't know that the reason they invented the Model 3, which is their smallest car, about $40,000 to $50,000, they wanted to put 500,000 of them out on the street, and they wanted to lease a lot of those. And if you lease a Model 3, in your contract, you cannot buy that after the lease is up, which normally you can. And the reason for that is because what Elon Musk is doing is his next big play is Uber with no drivers. And so it cost a 3-year lease, if I remember the article correctly, would pay for about 65% of the car. And so he said, hey, let's take this period of time where we put 500,000 of these Model 3s out there and let the drivers pay for them. When the lease is up, we'll take all of those cars back. They will be 65% paid for. And then what we're going to do is, and why they're pushing for fully automated, is because they're going to start Uber, where they will send a car to you. It will cost a lot less than Uber because you're not having to pay a driver for their car, and they will drive you everywhere. And I actually like the idea because, my grandmother has had health complications here recently, and my grandfather, several years ago, when he started having like issues with Parkinson's and dementia, one of the things that really sent him spiraling is when he lost his freedom and they took his license from him. And so when you start entertaining the idea of Tesla being the new Uber, where you don't have to have a license and you can just call off of your app, literally they're talking about prices to go 10 to 15 miles of being like $5 a ride, whereas right now it's $17 to $23 a ride.
For 5 miles?
Depending upon where you are and how much time, what city you're in. But that being said, there are benefits to some of this, but what we have to be careful of is just that we don't rely upon technology so much that we really lose a lot of entry-level jobs for people.
For sure.
Like Domino's wise, I would love my children to work for Domino's. Love it. A great job where you can lose your sense of entitlement and learn how to like hustle and be responsible and take care of people. And so, Domino's is probably going to go away from this because it's much more affordable for them they were saying they can put up to 15 pizzas in this vehicle, and where the pizzas sit, the way it's designed is it keeps them hot, and it just drives from place to place to place, and you punch in your code, and when it leaves, like it's giving you text messages that it's so many minutes out, and you go out to the car, put your code in, and take your pizza.
It's wild.
And they have built-in cameras so that they can see if you went and took the wrong order or if you tried to steal a pizza. It's pretty smart.
It's smart, but it's just, I don't know. It makes me feel sad.
Well, life is definitely changing. I was, using the Tesla as an example. I said to someone the other day, we're like 5 to 8 years out from new homes being built without garages. Or if they do build a garage just to keep a home looking semi-normal, it will be other rooms inside of it. A lot of people project apart from, like fast cars and old like collecting type vehicles. Like, no, we're going to go away from vehicles. because you just don't need the expense. You won't need the expense.
For sure.
It's really interesting just to see where everything is going. Also in the news, I could not help but see the Daunte Wright story that is capturing everyone's attention. Extremely sad.
Yeah. 20 years old.
What have you...
And his son, did he have a kid? I keep seeing a photo of him with a
I believe
little boy,
so.
I think.
I believe so.
What have I seen about it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just saw it's interesting that it's in Minnesota.
Again, 10 miles away from George Floyd.
And like that trial is actively happening right now. The main thing that I've been thinking about is, 'cause I saw the news break and I follow a lot of people on social media who engage with stories like this a lot. And so I couldn't miss it. But I think the one thing, and I think we've talked about this before, that I was very aware of is I just don't want to engage it.
Sure.
Like I'm just tired of all of this.
The
and
fatigue.
It's such a place of privilege that I can just like not think about it.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that is like a place of privilege that I can just close social media and pretend like this isn't happening again.
Yeah. I was thinking about that also with when I saw the headlines about them talking about shutting Michigan down again. I've really been so checked out from the news that some of that caught me off guard. But I think that's a good point. I think it's a realistic point that it is from a place of privilege if you're listening to this and you feel like you're afforded the opportunity to just turn off the news or disengage from the topic. Mm-hmm. I mean, I tried to think of that myself when I was reading the story and fighting feelings of fatigue with these stories myself. Like, what would I do if I were in that situation? You know, if that was my family member.
I was reading something about this story and just the difference in, you know, if you're black versus if you're white, and just the feeling that you get when you see those cop lights
for sure.
behind you.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like I've definitely been pulled over before. And like my fear is like, I'm going to have to pay $100 ticket, or I'm going to have to go tell my mom that I got pulled over, or whatever. Whereas increasingly in this country, if you're black, it's like, am I going to die today?
Sure.
Which is never a thought for me.
Sure.
When I'm getting pulled over, and it's just it's very sobering.
Yeah.
And so I think the work for me is like to stay in the game and to stay in the conversations and to continue to be just an active part of even just like seeing and analyzing my own racial biases. And,
sure. They definitely exist. I was having a conversation with someone on Sunday, like to act like if you are a human being, you have to actively fight your prejudices. Like
gosh.
I mean, and to think, you know you're guilty when you think you don't have any.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, the person that says you're not racist is one of the more racist people.
Sure. Well, you're just blind. You were telling me, I did not know this, that in Minnesota it is illegal to hang something from the rearview mirror.
Oh yeah. I didn't know that either. I just read that because that was a part of this story. It's that he had an air freshener. And so I guess he told his mom that he was pulled over because of the air freshener, which I don't know that was entirely true. I think he had expired plates or something, but I did read that it is illegal to hang something from your rearview mirror. Did you ever hang things? Did you hang your girlfriend's garter from your rearview mirror?
Definitely not that. But
that was a big thing for guys in my high school. Oh yeah. Matt Delmonico had my garter hanging from his rearview mirror.
Oh my gosh. How do we get back on track after that?
I don't know. I'm sorry. Go ahead. But it was a whole thing. It was a whole thing for us in prom. And like we would get charms. Like I got a charm that said like Matt and Mallory, and I had it put on my garter. I'm 16. And then he would hang it from his mirror. Oh. And like it's a whole thing. Like everyone's aware. Isn't that so weird?
We just found our social media clip. Yeah, we just found our preview right here.
Was that not you went to a Christian high school. Did you guys, Gelman? What?
That's what I was wondering. What country? Remind me what country you're from.
The suburbs of Chicago.
Wow.
Yeah, that was a whole thing.
Wow.
Yes. Matt,
Well,
do you still have my garter?
Matt,
Where are you, Matt?
Matt, would you give it back?
I need my garter back.
I want my garter back.
Yeah, it was a whole thing.
No,
Which apparently in Minnesota would be illegal.
Yeah, I hung one of those air freshener trees that now would kill me.
Sure.
The artificial smell would kill me.
Smells so good though.
It did. It did at the time. But that's a really interesting thought as to, I would like to look into that. I'm guessing they're going to say like it blocks your view.
Yeah. I think that
thing.
Yeah, I think it's something like that.
That's really interesting. I've never heard that before. What I think people really struggle to get past is, so Daunte Wright, when they pulled him over for expired plates or whatever, I think that's what I heard or read as well.
Yeah.
And then they found out that he had a warrant out for his arrest from things he did last year, that there was illegal possession of a firearm and then running from the police last June. And I think people have a really hard time getting past like, oh, well, this is the type individual that person was, or this is, whatever it is. And instead we don't focus on the outcome of what happened. Now, there's no doubt that when an officer pulls someone over and they run the plate and it's expired, or they see some sort of illegal activity like, oh, illegal possession of a firearm, this person could be dangerous, black or white, or they ran from the police one time. Like, there's so much that factors into it, coming from a family that has been involved in law enforcement with this officer who was a woman, I think 26 or 28-year veteran. She was training someone. And when you're training someone, you probably know this from work yourself, like your mind's not always fully on like the objective in front of you, because you're like, well, when I do this, I do this, and here's why I'm doing this. And she approached the vehicle and there was some sort of, he went back to get into his car, maybe to call his mom, or I'm sure she started to think that he was going to reach for something in light of his possession of a illegal firearm. And what I think is going to come out is, that her mind was not all there and she reached for the wrong side. And instead of grabbing her firearm, instead of grabbing her taser, she grabbed her firearm.
Yeah.
And like, talk about the worst timing in the world for something like this to happen.
I did watch the body cam footage and read an article. Like her reaction seems like she was genuinely surprised.
Yeah.
That she did not intend to shoot him, unlike with George Floyd, where it's like you had enough time to realize that you were kneeling on this man's neck harming him. Her response seemed like genuine surprise or shock.
Oh, for sure. I mean, she has, from what I read, 2 grown adult sons, and it's, when I first heard of it, of course, where my mind went is that it's another, white male officer. Yeah. That's where your mind goes. It reminds me that I recently watched the number 1 trending movie right now on iTunes is called City of Lies. I had not heard of this, and I just opened iTunes the other day and saw it and wanted to watch it because I'm fascinated by like investigations and law enforcement. Yeah. And it is a true story. Johnny Depp plays the main character, which I really like Johnny Depp.
Oh my gosh, he's so talented.
Yeah, very, very. He was phenomenal in this. And
what has he sucked in? Has he sucked in anything?
I'm sure.
Okay.
But I don't know.
You guys texted us and let us know what Johnny Depp has sucked in.
Texted us and let us know at our number. But it's a true story, which I love. Movies that are based on true stories.
Me too.
And I had never heard this, that it's a white officer with the LAPD that was known for being like extremely conscientious and like into the details and like he is this detective that is like very accomplished at solving complex cases. And he makes a statement in the movie that I'll remember forever. He said, so he's studying the death of Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, when something of this magnitude happens and the case is not solved, it is not solved on purpose, and you need to go to law enforcement to see where the problem is. And so it is, I highly recommend the movie.
Oh my gosh, is that what happened with Tupac?
Well, so the thing about it is it opens up and starts showing you. So this gentleman spent over a decade trying to get to the bottom of it. And long story short, he uncovers a gang within the LAPD with very high-level officials involved who are in the pocket of Suge Knight, who was the manager and confidant of Tupac, but also the founder of Death Row Records.
Okay.
And so as this detective starts uncovering all of these things and how the shooting went down, like he keeps getting set back from all of the upper brass above him. Like, stop doing this, stop looking into this, let this go. And eventually they take him off the case because he's getting too close to the fact that there were officers inside the LAPD that were being escorts for Biggie Smalls that night in LA. And I will stop there because people need to watch the movie.
Oh, come on.
It is.
Boo.
Yeah. I mean, should I?
Are they paying you for this
No,
endorsement? Now
no,
everybody's
no.
going to go watch the movie.
Yeah. I mean,
What year? Give us what year is this happening?
97.
97.
97. Yes. I am transitioning out of Ohio into Florida at the time, but it's such a good movie. And the idea is, I won't ruin it for you, but this detective, is devastated because they get rid of him because he was uncovering injustice.
Did
inside the police department?
Did the case get solved? Or is that part of the?
I mean,
all right, fine.
Yeah.
You need to change the subject because I'm going to keep asking questions.
It is really, really good. And I'll just go back to that line that he just says, when something like this happens, and the case is quote unquote unsolved, it is for a reason. And that's because people in positions of authority turn their back from justice to prefer someone else or to prefer something they've built. And it's just, they document the inside story of how Suge Knight from Death Row Records had all of these officers in his pocket.
Is he still alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, he must not like this movie.
Well, last time I checked, they got him on something else, and he's in prison. I don't know if he's out now or not, but they had him in prison. But it is, it's really phenomenal how the movie ends. And again, all true story. It got me thinking. So I am in a mastermind group that is more. I just started this probably 4 or 5 weeks ago. That is very energy oriented and trauma oriented. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that we started talking about, and it reminded me of this when I saw the Daunte Wright heading, is we were all online with a therapist, and she was talking about the man box. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
Working hard not to make smart comments.
I've not heard. Well, I don't know. I guess no, I've not heard of it.
Yes.
Gelman, what about you?
And so, long story short, Axe, the deodorant company,
oh my gosh,
sponsored this big study.
Go ahead. I feel like Axe is the kind of deodorant you taste.
For sure.
It's so powerful. I remember that in high school when we were giving garters out.
When you're giving garters away.
It is a very powerful. That stuff is real.
Well, yeah, you definitely can smell someone coming from miles away. But they sponsored a study in Australia of a couple thousand men looking into their trauma after studying like violence against women and perpetuating violence within a community. And basically what they came up with is that young men are conditioned into what a man should be, and they end up getting boxed in by these thoughts and beliefs. And similar to what you said not long ago in a message that you were delivering at City Church, they end up having all of these feelings to include like anger and disappointment and anxiety and fear trapped inside of them. And eventually they have to come out.
For sure.
And so when I saw that with Daunte Wright, like I thought, oh, here we go again. Like another man, perpetuating violence. And what's interesting is a lot of us men do not know that we have been conditioned so badly, and all of this is pinned up in us. We think it's normal.
Yeah.
And then in a hot moment or a moment of crises, it comes out. These things come out.
Well, look at how we talk to little kids. Evie just turned 3 yesterday, and I see, even when I'm like at a playground with her, like the ways that we talk to little girls versus little boys. Like we tell little boys, like if they're crying, don't act like a little girl.
Oh, for sure.
Don't throw like a girl. Don't cry like a girl. It's like, what in the world are we doing?
For sure. What's the chapter in Glennon Doyle's book Untamed about the kids? It's boys, isn't it?
It's just called Boys.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Life-changing.
Yeah. Just how she describes like how we have conditioned our boys. Mm-hmm.
Even, sorry to interrupt you, but even like telling boys that they can't play with dolls.
For sure.
Like, hello, fatherhood is a thing.
Sure.
Like your boy can like enjoy caring and nurturing a doll.
Yeah.
It's insane.
I want to
Don't you want your kid, your boy, your son to grow up to be a great dad, a nurturing person?
You would think.
Oh my gosh, it blows me away. Go ahead.
Well, I was thinking this would be a good time to insert my favorite toy from Christmas when I was 10 was a Cabbage Patch doll.
Those were hard to come by.
Yeah.
Wow, how privileged.
I was very privileged. White man over here privileged.
What was it? I had a Cabbage Patch doll, or my sister did, that had like orange hair. That's all I remember about it.
I think they all had orange hair.
Oh, they did?
No. Oh. But sounds good.
Good for you.
Yeah. Just familiar with my feminine side.
Yeah.
Going back to what Glennon Doyle was saying there in that chapter on boys, is that there is like, we need to think about ourselves differently. You are identified as a woman, and I'm identified most of the time as a man, but we have feminine and masculine energy. Both of us do. Mm-hmm. And we need to live into and develop both sides of ourselves. And just because I'm a quote unquote man doesn't mean that I don't need to grow and live into and be healthy with my feminine energy. Like if we are, supposed to be married, if two people are supposed to be married and live into a relationship of being two halves that make a whole, you need to develop both sides of you.
For sure.
You're not to be all feminine and I'm to be all masculine. Like it's to balance. And that's, what I really love about what she says in that chapter is just like, we have made it so hard for our men to embrace their feminine energy, and they're disconnected. And like you said, I remember being made fun of for being emotional.
Oh my gosh,
and I was just taught that, like, from that point on, like, you're not going to see me emotional because emotions are weakness. Mm-hmm. Let me read. I pulled this up. Here are some of the thoughts that end up like boxing a man in. And it's like, as I was reading these.
Oh, that's why it's called the man box.
Yeah. You get boxed in by these crazy beliefs. These were statements, and the men would rank them, like if they related to them, if it was true for them. A man who talks a lot about his worries, fears, and problems shouldn't really get respect. Men really related to that. Like, oh yeah, I can't talk about my worries, my fears, and my problems. Men should figure out their personal problems on their own without asking others for help.
Oh my gosh, it's insane.
Me. Here we go. A guy who doesn't fight back when others push him around is weak. There you go. Guys should act strong even if they feel scared or nervous inside. I mean, all of these things, I'll go with a couple more. It is very hard for a man to be successful if he doesn't look good. A guy who spends a lot of time on his looks isn't very manly. Women...
But you have to look good in order to be successful.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, impossible to live up to all of this.
Let's see some other good ones here. It is not good for a boy to be taught how to cook, sew, and clean the house or care for younger children. Men should really be the ones to bring money home to provide for their families, not women. A gay guy is not a real man.
Oh.
I mean, all of these things like hypersexuality, a real man should have as many sexual partners as he can.
Oh.
Men should use violence to get respect if necessary. All of these different limiting beliefs, but if you ask most men, like they highly would relate to these things. A man should always have the final say about decisions in his relationship or marriage. Like these are the things that literally box men in.
And therefore women.
Check this one. Yeah, exactly. Check this one out. If a guy has a girlfriend or wife, he deserves to know where she is at all times.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, men highly relating to these things. And this is the man box. And similar to what you were saying is like when you live and you're conditioned to believe all these things and then they don't happen, like you get feelings pinned up inside. And eventually, in the right moment, when you are triggered, violence and anger, all of these things come out.
For sure. 100%. I mean, I think, and what I said in my message is like, that's why we have the majority of, in America, shooters are male.
Sure.
But even in Australia, I don't think they have a very, I don't think their gun problem is as serious as ours, but I do think there's a big domestic violence problem in Australia, if I remember correctly. And I mean, same for women too. I mean, if your anger is not expressed, I think it's often then, it's just expressed in different ways than men.
Sure.
But it goes somewhere. It's not just going to disappear if you don't express it.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, then you're going to blow up and hurt people.
Well, I think, I don't know the most recent statistic, but last time I checked, it was like 74% of Americans identify as Christians. And I think one of the things that, Christianity has done that is not good for society, and it's really fear-based, and too often we don't realize how much fear has been in the evangelical movement as motivation for behavioral modification. Mm-hmm. But the idea that feelings are bad, and if you believe in God and you have faith, you are to always feel happy.
Right.
And when you feel less than happy, something is wrong or you have a lack of faith.
Exactly.
I don't think things could be further from the truth.
Right. I agree.
And so then when there is dysfunction within the home or someone is fearful, we bury it in order to try to get back to quote unquote happy. And what gets buried comes out. Things buried alive do not die. Mm. They eventually work themselves back out of your body. It might just take decades.
Right. I mean, that's why I think a lot of churches have a lot of fakers.
Well,
inside of it, because you don't feel like you can walk in and be authentic.
For sure.
Like, why would you, most of us in most churches would not feel comfortable expressing that they're depressed or anxious or fearful, because then you suck as a Christian.
Yeah.
And sure. I mean, it's such a disservice, a place where you should be able to be yourself and feel safe to be all parts of you.
Yeah. In this group that I am in, we were talking about with this therapist the difference between emotions and feelings, and that you have to recognize here is an emotion of anger, but it doesn't have to turn into fear or a feeling for me. Like I can acknowledge it, but it doesn't have to become a feeling, and vice versa. Like I am feeling scared, like realizing and acknowledging that is how you feel right now. And sometimes, or a lot of times, you can acknowledge it and it will go away because you said hello, you acknowledged it and acknowledged its existence. And that's what your body wants. And one of the things that I thought was interesting that the therapist said is, these things are all made to serve you. They're actually good. Even when you feel scared, it is your body trying to tell you something is in the environment, or there is a thought that you're having, or there's something that someone has done that your body is saying, this is what's going on. And instead of being afraid of it or quickly bearing it and running from it, you need to acknowledge and say, hey, thank you for making me feel this way. I know I'm aware of this is what my boss said, or this is what I'm up against, like a lack of money. Thank you. I realize that now you're okay. You can go away. And me being afraid isn't going to help the shortage of money. Actually, acknowledging my fear over it gives me, and releasing it gives me more capacity and energy to put into how do I solve that actual problem. And so to your point, I think when we have, we're waking up as a society to see that there's all of this suppressed and buried feelings and energy that's now coming out. Mm-hmm. And whereas the church was positioned to say like, hey, and this is your message. Your feelings are very much a part of you, and they need to be acknowledged, and we need to be okay with, and I have not had this capacity in the past, and I'm working on it, to say, this is how I feel. There is nothing wrong with saying, this is how I feel, and because you feel that way doesn't mean that has to be who you are or where you are, like where you stay. Like, it is okay to say, these are my feelings.
Well, God did not create a few billion robots. I mean, that's just like not part of the design. Our feelings are a part of the human experience, and they are meant to be experienced.
Sure.
And that doesn't always feel good, and it's not always easy. But to your point, I mean, it makes such a difference. Remember when we had the episode about the vagus nerve, and it's like, just try screaming.
Yeah. I do that still.
Oh, for sure.
I'll just scream in the car.
Yeah. Similarly, like, just say what you're feeling.
Sure.
And like, it doesn't make everything magically better, but I really think it helps.
Yeah. Well, what's so funny, and this is Charlie trying to break free from his man box.
Oh.
Someone will tell me how they feel, and because I was raised being a performance-driven person, my value, it was modeled for me, and a lot of it came from evangelical roots, that your value is in your ability to make a difference in other people's lives. And so I hear problem, I'm going to solve it.
Sure.
I am great at solving problems.
Sure.
And so someone says, I'm feeling really anxious about this. You know what I do? Instead of saying, oh, thank you for saying that to me, I hear what you're saying. Do you want to say more about that? Instead, I'm like, oh, well, here's how we fix that, and here's what we do with this, and here's how that can go away. And I totally ignore the person and how they're feeling, and I go straight to the problem, and I do it like with good intentions.
Sure.
But totally miss the gold in the situation where it's like, no, that's how they're feeling about this, and what they're dealing with is so much more important than what triggered that in them.
Right. Well, and there's a place for solving the problems, but I think it has to begin with just like sitting with the feelings and letting the person express the feelings, and you being with them in the expression of the feelings. Because otherwise it's sort of like, then you get boxed in, you get man boxed into like always being the problem solver, and people come and tell you their problems, not because they want to talk about what they're feeling, but because they know you'll solve it.
Yeah.
Talk about a box.
For sure.
To break free from.
The therapist in this last session was saying that you need to view the emotions or the feelings that come up as little birds that land like on the telephone wire, and like watch them, acknowledge them, figure out where they're coming from, and like don't shoo them away. When they fly away because they're ready to go away. If you shoo them away, they did not accomplish their purpose. And so it's, they call it the FINT message. It's feel the feelings, investigate, like, okay, is this really anxiety? Notice where it's at in the body. Like, do you have a bodily sensation? Are your hands tingling? Do you feel it like down by your belly button? Really, they're talking about the chakras. So notice where they're coming from. And then T, talk to it. Like, hey, thank you for telling me that, or showing me that I'm nervous here, or I'm feeling anxious about this conversation that I had, or I know that I'm coming to a place this month where I'm not going to have enough money to pay my bills, and fear, this little birdie of fear, landed on a wire, and it's just like bringing that to my attention to serve me. And instead of like shooing it away like it is the enemy, it's not the enemy. It's telling you there's a real situation here, and it's just prompting your body to respond to it. And like you just listen, and the goal is like move toward it and acknowledge it and thank it, talk to it, and then it will fly away. And when it flies away, like you're going to be much better off and equipped to go and handle the actual thing versus being preoccupied like you've got a bird problem. And that's what the therapist was saying. Like, these things keep happening because instead of viewing the problem to be maybe a bad decision that we made and have too many subscriptions to something, or we went to the grocery store hungry and spent too much food, or we have a spending problem, which is coming from not handling our emotions and our feelings the right way. Instead of being able to get to the issue, we make the feelings and the emotions the problem, and they just keep happening over and over and over again because we do not allow them to clear.
So have you tried that method?
I have, yeah.
And how did it go? Or how did it
we
feel?
practiced on in the group. We practiced. It was really interesting because basically for the first time, I was taught and they were coaching us like view the anxiety or the worry as something that's good and thank it. Start off by thanking it for being here. And then watch, like run it back up after you talk to it, run it back up that same scale and notice what happens in your body, investigate if it's still there, and then feel how you feel now. What's the new feeling in light of letting that bird stay as long as it wanted to and then fly away?
Yeah.
I think it was really helpful. And you know, if you're listening to this and you have any like faith-oriented upbringing, you know, the thing that you're going to have to overcome is a lot of you have been told that you're, you know, an F up, you're a problem because you had strong feelings. And it's like people with strong feelings change the world.
For sure.
And so if I were the devil.
For better or worse.
Yeah, for better or worse. If I were the devil, I would create cultures. I would not use arrows or like weapons in the sense of like just a very specific thing like pornography. I would create very low-key cultures that condition our young people into these boxes where they cannot feel their feelings, and it gets all bottled up and stored inside. And then there are explosive moments where we make the manifestation of the problem versus the fact that as faith-based people who all of us want to do good, all of us want to fulfill our purpose, we were taught that if you have feelings, there's something wrong with you.
For sure.
And I'm sorry to those of you that are listening that like me were accidentally and unintentionally conditioned to believe that if you had strong emotions, there was something wrong with you. Yep. I'm very sorry.
Well, and it's for boys and girls too. It's not just boys.
No,
I mean, girls
sure.
get called crazy all the time
for
because
sure.
they have big emotions.
For sure.
I definitely have been.
For sure.
And it's just so harmful.
For
Part of
sure.
the problem was like nobody taught me how to feel my feelings.
For sure.
And so they would come out in explosive moments.
For sure.
Then I would feel all of the shame. And I mean, it's just a vicious cycle.
For sure.
But I think as, I don't know, like feminine or simplistic or whatever you want to call this, as this might sound like, I think we're onto something here with like creating a healthier society.
For sure.
And it's like, it can be as simple as like letting people feel the feelings that they have rather than bottling them up and then handing them a gun.
Yeah. I think, you know, when you read people like Glennon Doyle and some of what she said in Untamed, like the world is moving back toward a feminine energy because of how much it's been neglected.
Yeah.
Right. And that feminine energy has more of the feelings in it. And if you're a man, you're to have that, and you're to live into that and embrace that. And so the planet, the earth was made to be a certain way. And like you hear Mother Earth, and, you know, you and I talk about God being a man and a woman. In the image of God, he created them male and female. Like the image of God has just as much feminine energy as it does masculine energy. Mm-hmm. And as we've said, and we'll get into this in the next episode, like I've never been more suspicious than the theology that I've been raised with, because of, if you really get into it, and I've been doing this now for 20 years, if you really get into studying it, you start to see how much of government and human systems, predominantly ran by men, have created systems to control people. Mm-hmm. And, you know, people will listen to this and think that, I don't know, maybe you've influenced me too much. But the truth of the matter is, like, everybody's responsible to investigate it for themselves. And as I was saying to someone last night, like, the theology that a lot of us were raised with, it's not delivering.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not delivering. And so if that's the case, we need to get back to watching the life of Jesus and seeing what he did as much as what he said and living into that.
So true.
Episode 58, ladies and gentlemen. Emotionships, the podcast, where we talk about the real reason everything happens.